Hey guys, and welcome to another Python tutorial here on the Coder's Legacy channel. In this video, we'll take a look at the Python Repr function. The Python Repr function, or the representation function, as is often called, is a special function or a special method, really, that's available in every single class. Okay, so basically in this tutorial, we'll take a look at the Repr function, where it's used, how it's used, and lastly, and most importantly, we'll take a look at how the Repr function can actually be used in custom classes. By which I mean how we'll actually define the Repr function ourselves for custom classes. Okay, so without further ado, let me just go ahead and show you some very basic uses of the Repr function. Okay, or more like just show you what the Repr function does. Okay, because I feel like it's a bit complex to understand without actually seeing it in action. Okay, so I'm just creating a few objects over here, and then we'll use the Repr function on them. Alright, that's good enough. So as I mentioned, the Repr function returns a string. Okay, that string is meant to represent that object. Okay, so for example, what would the representation for this be, for the set or the string? Well, actually it's pretty simple. Just watch. If I print out the representation, print out what the Repr function returns. Okay, let me just copy this for the other three and do this one for my string and this one for the float and this one for the int. Okay, so if I run this, it gives us the exact same output. Okay, because this is the representation. Okay, and this is what it's supposed to look like. All right, so basically it just gave us the same thing. Okay, and that's normal. But what if we were doing this with custom classes? Okay, well, that's where the story changes, because let me go ahead and make our custom class. Okay, and we'll see how things change. I'm going to make our custom class here, and again, it's fairly standard. It's called student. It takes what? A name. It takes an age. Okay, and what should I do here? Let's create some variables. Self.age is equal to age, and self.name is equal to name. All right, now let's create an object of this class called s. Okay, now what happens if I print this? If I print s, what happens? Well, let's see. Oh, okay. Let me pass in those variables first, John and 18. All right, this is what just got printed out. Okay, now first of all, you may wonder, what does the print function do? What does this function do? This is something you need to actually think about, because what the print function is doing is that it's actually just calling the Repr function. Okay, the default behavior of the print function is to call this function. Actually, this is called the str function, and this is what the print function calls. If that's not available, what it does is calls the Repr function. Okay, so let me just clarify this again. If I use the Repr function on this as well, let's see what happens. There won't be any difference. Okay, you see, there's no difference. It's the same thing. It's the same format. Okay, but this isn't something that's readable to us. We're gonna look at this and be like, what the hell is that? And that's not something that's readable either to us or not the computer either. Not really. It's not any useful information. So what if we want to rectify this? What if we just defined our own Repr function? Okay, because again, every single class has a function called Repr like this. Okay, and currently it's using the default one. So why not just define our own like this? Okay, what I could do is something like return. I'll use a formatted string because I want to do something like my name is, and this is where I use the formatting. This is a pretty handy technique, by the way. And my name is, okay, John, and my age is, oh, hold on. I meant to write the name over there. Okay, so what this function does is that it returns a formatted string Okay, the formatted string part isn't very important. That's just a technique I'm using to get the name and the age in there. It's a pretty handy technique. All right, so what I'm going to do is I just overwrote this repr function, and now if I call this, let's see what happens. Okay, look, it says my name is John and my age is 18. Now that makes sense. It's printing out the information about the object and it's a representation. Now, here's another handy thing that I'll show you. Okay, I'm just printing it out normally. Okay, I'm not calling the repr function. I'm not doing any of that. Let's just see what happens. Okay, look, it printed out the exact same thing. See? It didn't change. Now, the reason I told you before that the print function, that what it does is either uses the repr function or the str function. It calls them. Okay, and this is why the print function basically works on anything that has a repr or str object. Sorry, str or repr function. Now, the reason why the repr function is being called over here is because it's defined. Okay, we defined it explicitly. Now, if I defined an str function, that would take priority because the print function will first try calling str and then it'll call it repr. Okay, and this is just some extra information, but I'm just telling you this because you can't understand this concept alone without knowing the other background, knowing the other background details. Okay, so I'm just telling you all of this. Now, let's take a look at something else. The repr function, its main usage is to give us an accurate representation, to give us a developer-friendly representation of the object, okay, or a more code-friendly version. Now, the str function is actually, you may wonder why we use it. Okay, why use str when we already have repr? Okay, and the reason for this is that both of them are meant to represent the object, but both of them are meant to represent it in slightly different ways. Repr is meant to represent it in a more code-friendly way, and str is meant to present it in a more user-friendly way. So what we've done here is actually more suitable for str. Okay, what we did was made a more user-friendly version. What we typically do, and what is considered good practice with repr, is a string that looks something like this. Like this, something self.name and self.age. This is a more proper representation. Okay, and what happens if I run this now? If I just do printf normally, what will happen? What happens here is that this is printed out. Okay, because I told you the str function takes priority over repr. Okay, now if I delete this for a second, what you'll see is that this gets printed out. Okay, the repr function takes priority and gets printed because the str function isn't there. Okay, now this is an accurate representation. This is basically a good code representation because it's like the constructor. Okay, it's like the constructor over here, and it's showing you all the values inside the object. Okay, so it's a more developer-friendly option. Okay, str doesn't necessarily have to have all the information about the object. It just needs to be a good representation that makes sense to the user, because str is the function that is used whenever it is printed. Okay, and repr is something that you use more for development and stuff. Okay, so that's basically what today's video is about. I hope you guys understood the repr function, where it's used, okay, and why it's used and how it's used, because good practice is important. Okay, and it'll make it look good, trust me. So with that, let's end this tutorial, and I hope you guys subscribe to the channel. I hope you guys do leave some feedback in the comment section below. Do let me know what you thought of the video, and if there's anything else that you're interested in, some other content, some other functions, because there's a whole lot of functions like repr, special functions like these. Alright, if there's something that caught your eye, do let me know. Alright, and without further ado, let's end this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.